You struggle with consistency, don't you? You've tried to get into working out. Maybe you've watched one of my previous videos and you've started doing some push-ups, some pull-ups every day, in the morning, in the evening, whatever. But then there was that one day where you had to go to work real quick because you slept in, you missed your alarm, something like that. And you forgot to do your push-ups. It's not that you wouldn't have had the time. Would have taken a minute maybe. But you just didn't think about it. Or maybe you did think about it, but were too stressed out in that situation to just do it. And then you forgot to do them later in the day. That day turns into 2, 3, a week, 4 weeks, several months. Maybe it's been half a year now, and you're sitting here watching this video, and you haven't worked out. Or maybe you wanted to get into working out more seriously. You got yourself a program. Maybe you're even one of the guys I made a program for. And you start working out 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 times a week if you're an absolute maniac. You do that for 1 week, maybe 2. Maybe you drop a day or 2 during the second week. Third week rolls around, you're doing like 2 workouts, maybe just 1. And then you kind of just trail off back into what you were doing before. Whatever that may be, it's not working out. And if you really think about it, this kind of applies to every good habit you might want to establish in your life. You want to get beyond that point of no return. But you feel like you always have to keep trying. You always have to keep reminding yourself. You always have to actively, proactively engage with these activities. They don't feel natural to you. They don't feel automated like a normal part of your life. You have to force yourself to do them. This video is going to help you get beyond that point of no return. See, I couldn't stop working out even if I felt like the laziest worm-like motherfucker for the next month, 2 months even. I just couldn't. I couldn't stop working out if I really tried to be a lazy piece of shit. The reason why is because training, lifting weights, other types of athletic endeavors, parkour, martial arts, physical activity has become such a fundamental part of who I am, of just my day-to-day life, that I start to really feel like shit when I'm not working out. And the truth is, so do you. You do feel like shit compared to the version of you that is working out regularly, consistently. But you know what the problem is? You're not aware enough of it. I work out for such a significant portion of the year, say, that working out feels like the default to me. So now when I'm not working out for a substantial amount of time, which is something that doesn't really happen anymore, unless I get sick maybe, or something of the sort, but it used to happen in the past when I was, struggling to get consistent myself. During those phases, though, where I wasn't consistent or I wasn't working out at all for a month or 2, I would feel like absolute shit. because the default was me training. The default was me being in good shape, being active, engaging my muscles, my cardiovascular system, walking long distances, 20,000 steps or whatever a day. And I would feel back pain creeping in, my knees hurting from sitting around too much when I didn't train. And my mind would compare that to the status quo. I wouldn't feel like, oh, I have to force myself to work out because I theoretically know that it's a good thing. I would feel like, dude, I have to get back to my normal life because I feel like absolute shit right now. Physically, emotionally, not hypothetically. I don't know in theory that working out is better. I know with my body. I physically know. That's where we want to get you. To the point where you're not forcing yourself to do something that's good for you, but not really enjoyable. But to the point where you are doing something that's just a part of your nature, of your day-to-day life, of your routine, and not the routine you are actively, consciously having to set for yourself. Your routine, your life, your lifestyle. Because if you don't do it, you feel like crap. Just the same way you might not feel as happy if you don't get to do some of the bad habits you might be doing right now. But how do you do that? How do you get there? It might seem very far away right now. You can listen to me talk about this, but you might be thinking, what does that do for me? It's kind of hard to imagine that from where I'm standing. Fair enough. That's what this video is for. As you can tell from the title of the video, the key aspect here is going hard. What does that mean? I've said in the past to start getting you active, to just do something. Just do it. Work out in some way, shape, or form. But if you're just working out a little bit, if you're just working out the tiniest bit every day, and the rest of your lifestyle is essentially the same, it'll be very easy to fall off of that again. Because you have the same habits, you have the same routine, more or less. There's no drastic change, right? So going from, +1 to 0, not a huge step. If you've worked out a little bit, if you have started doing something, getting physically active, just a little bit, just in some capacity, but now you realize, shit, I just can't stick to it. We are now at the next stage of this path that ideally leads towards you just feeling like you need to work out. And again, you can apply this to other habits as well. This really goes for any type of good habit, good practice you're trying to establish in your life. But working out is a very easy, good example, and I think it's something a lot of people struggle with. So that's what I'm going to use in this video to talk about the concept as a whole. What you need is a drastic cut, a life-altering experience. You need something akin to a maturity ritual, right? Something that marks the cut between boyhood and manhood. Maybe you already consider yourself a man, but you need something akin to that. Something that ushers in a new era in your life, okay? And trying to keep everything you're doing the same while introducing some new habit a little bit. Sometimes it works, but more often than not, you're going to do it for a while, and then you're going to fall off again. The mentality you need is the burn the bridge mentality. You need to kill the past version and move on. And the way you do that is by going hard as fuck. You've tried working out a little bit. You've started getting active. You've started getting into training to some extent, right? Maybe you're at a different stage. Maybe you're at the working out somewhat consistently 2, maybe 3 times a week stage, but you can't get yourself to push further. You really want to get out of the intermediate fucking hole of death at some point. You want to crawl out of there, make it out the other side, become an absolute beast at some point. But beyond those 2, maybe 3 workouts a week that you've been doing for the last 2, 3 years, you just can't get yourself to pull through, to take that step, to become serious about your lifting or other type of training, right? Here's what you're going to do. And the reason I'm talking about this is because this is what I have done at multiple points throughout my life when I really needed to change something, really needed to pick up a new habit, really needed to eliminate an old one. You are going to set a challenge. We are not talking about trying to establish a habit right away. You are going to set a challenge, a quest for yourself, a mission. Let's say a 4-week challenge, for example. And you are going to work out, for example, 6 times a week for those 4 weeks. And whatever happens, you're not allowed to break that challenge. You have to do those workouts. You simply must. What's even easier is to add additional shit to the challenge. The more the challenge creates a break from your normal life, the better. Don't consider this like some habit you're trying to pick up and make compatible with what you've already got. Consider this like a vacation, like a special project you're working on at work that completely changes your workflow compared to what you do usually the rest of the year. Consider this like a paper you're writing for your university course, as opposed to, regularly going to seminars and stuff and maybe reading a few papers by people, right? Talking to folks, etc. That's maybe your regular day-to-day at the university. This is not your regular day-to-day. This shouldn't be part of your regular day-to-day. This should be as extreme a cut from your day-to-day as is possible under your given circumstances. And don't be comfortable here. Be real with yourself. Can I drastically change my diet? for this time as well, maybe. Go hard on my diet. Go hard on my training. Do both of them at once. Can I have a really, really clean sleep cycle for these 4 weeks? No weird days where you get up at 2 p.m. in the afternoon or 4 p.m. and you feel like you've been hit by a truck because you went to bed super late the night before. None of that bullshit, okay? You're going to bed at this specific fixed time and you're waking up at this other specific fixed time and getting out of bed right away and going about your day. And if you can't fall asleep, it is what it is. Just lie there like a fucking soldier and stay in bed and do fuck all until you fall asleep. Or go ahead and watch the videos I made quite a while back, like a year ago, on sleep and how to sleep properly. Now, as you can tell, the camera angle has changed a little bit. My look has changed a little bit. I was just editing videos and realized that this recording cut off before I was actually done talking. So I'm re-recording this second half of the video. But anyways, yeah, let's stick to the topic at hand. You want this extreme cut from your regular day-to-day life. And I'm going to go ahead and try to insert some graphs here to kind of visually get across what we are trying to achieve. What you're doing when you try to insert a habit slightly into your day-to-day life. So you're not really changing much about the way you live your regular life, your regular routine that you go through. You're just picking up something like, those morning push-ups, and you're trying to toss it in there. You're not really changing up anything else. What might end up happening, and what often ends up happening, is that you go up. I'm again going to insert a graph here. You go up to +1. Let's call it +1. Okay, you have added a slight good habit. So 0 is your baseline. You go up to +1. But then a day comes around where you don't feel great, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, or maybe you're stressed out, right? You have to leave the house right away, and you forget to do that good habit. You have nowhere to drop to, right? Except baseline or below baseline even. But let's assume you only drop back to baseline. If you fall off regarding your good habit, what's going to happen is you're at a +1 and you go back to 0. And maybe after a while, you remind yourself that you wanted to get on this good habit and you go back to +1. And then a bad day rolls around and you go back to 0, etc. This whole idea of one step at a time, get better 1% every day type of deal is fucking bullshit. Now, I know that's not what most people want to hear because it's not nice and easy and friendly and overly optimistic, but it is the truth. As someone who has drastically changed the way he lives his life multiple times, and whose day-to-day life, if you look at a week, a month, several months, is completely unrecognizable compared to how I used to live just a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Let me tell you that this is not the way to go about stuff. Are you gonna change over the long run? Yeah, maybe. Maybe the distances between those slight upticks where you go from 0 to +1. Maybe they are going to decrease. And at some point, you manage to scrape out that progress from 0 to +1. And now you're at +1. How long is that going to take? How long is it going to take for you to get consistent with just that slight improvement? To the point where it's, the rare occasion where you drop back down to 0. Or maybe you're consistently at +1 now, okay? And you are trying to push for +2. How long is that going to take? A long fucking time. Your life is too short for that bullshit. Your life is too short to try to get into working out for 4 years, 5 years, however fucking long it might take. Here's what we want to do. By setting this extreme challenge, and I want to be clear here, this should be a challenge that does take place over a somewhat extended period of time. Depending on what level you're at, and depending on the specific change you're trying to make, this might be a little longer, a little shorter. I think for something as simple as making working out a regular part of your week, say, right? So you're working out a little bit every day, or you're working out maybe 1 or 2 times a week, and you want to actually get into working out. We're talking at least 3 times a week. Ideally, like 4 or 5, maybe 6 workouts per week, okay? If that's the kind of change you want to make, I would recommend something like 4 weeks. The great thing about a 4-week challenge is that the time frame is limited. It's multiple weeks, so that's not super long. The end is in sight, right? But it's long enough to kind of get a feel for a very different way of going about your day-to-day life. So it's not so long that it feels, fuck, this shit is getting uncomfortable, man. I'm leaning back against my weights bench. Anyways, it's not so long that it feels impossible to do, and you're just going to completely lose sight of it at some point or give up. But it's long enough that you really develop a sense, an experience when it comes to living a very, very different routine. So 4 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, maybe 2 weeks, but multiple weeks, less than a couple of months. Maybe if you're hardcore, you can go for 2 months, 3 months. Again, this kind of depends on what you're doing here. Let's stick to our example because that makes explaining this whole thing easier. What you're going to do for this time is not going up to +1. You are going up to +4, +5 maybe. We are making an extreme jump. No 1% everyday bullshit. We're going like 30%, 40, 50%, 100%. Just from one day to the next, we make a crazy jump. Now what's going to happen? Maybe, just maybe, you kind of, cheat a little bit on the challenge. Maybe you don't 100% it. Maybe after 4 weeks, you've done like, let's say 90% of the workouts you were supposed to do. 90% of +5 is still a whole lot more than +1. Okay? So first of all, by setting a hardcore challenge, even if you fail the challenge, you have still achieved more. But that's not the important part. The important part is what happens after, right? Let's say you force yourself to do the challenge. Maybe you 100% it, right? You big dick that shit. Maybe you go like 90%. And that's still a success, but I do want you to push for 100%. 90% is a failure, but it is a success compared to what the fuck you were doing before, which was nothing. You were at 0, you jump up to 5, and then maybe you kind of trail off to like a 4.5 or a 4 over the course of the challenge. That's still pretty good. Now, after the challenge, what would typically happen, right, is you have completed the challenge, you feel some kind of satisfaction, and you drop back into your regular day-to-day life. That's not what you're going to do. What you are going to do is you're going to drop down to like a 2. Take a day off, by all means, that's fine. But after that rest day, let's say you've been working out 6 times a week, okay, and you've got your rest day on the last day of the week, Sunday, for example, okay? After the 6 workouts of your final week, take that rest day on Sunday, chill the fuck out, but then for the next week, you don't just forget about the challenge or, push it to the side, say, we're done with this now. This was sick, I really went hard, but now let's get back to regular life. No, what you're going to do on that last day, or maybe even before, while you're on the challenge, maybe even before you start the challenge, is plan your new routine. And your new routine can contain aspects of your previous day-to-day life, but should be a significant change still. So let's say you go from working out maybe once or twice a week to 6 times a week for 4 weeks. You go hard on that. You complete 90, 85, maybe 95, 100% of that challenge. You really go hard on that shit. Okay. And then you drop down to 4 workouts per week. You go up to 6, and then you drop down to 4, 3 or 4 workouts. And you stick to more or less the same diet, but you get a little bit more chill about it, okay? You stick to more or less the same sleep cycle, but you relax it a little bit. Maybe on the weekends you hang out with friends a little bit, etc. Now what we have done is we've spiked up your progress to a crazy degree, and then we've dropped down afterwards, which was going to happen anyway at some point when you try to make a positive improvement, because you're going to have a bad day again. But we've done so intentionally, and by spiking your progress to this crazy level, we can now drop down to a level that is significantly below what you were doing, and still a significant improvement from what you were doing before the challenge. And that's how you go so hard that you can't turn back. You push yourself all the way to the fucking limit, and then you go down a little bit, you drop down, you chill the fuck out. But because you have gone so incredibly hard, you dropping down is still an improvement. It is still a move upward. This is the whole idea of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. This shit works, okay? Trust me when I say that. I've been using this strat for a pretty significant amount of time now, and having the experience of what it's like to work out 6 times a week consistently for a somewhat extended period of time is going to make working out 3 or 4 times a week feel like an absolute breeze. Chill as fuck. The important thing, though, is to, under no circumstances whatsoever, drop down to your old routine. I want you to drop down, in this example, to those 3 or 4 workouts per week. Okay. Continue to do those. And what is probably going to happen is that over time, you slightly decrease in terms of how rigidly you stick to the goals, the routine you have set for yourself. So you're probably going to start to slack off over time. And what you do when that happens is you create a new spike. If you're kind of stagnating, you've kind of evened out at, let's say, 1.5. So 1.5 is your new zero now. You went up to 5, plus 5, you dropped down to plus 2, and then you slowly kind of go down to about maybe a 1.5. And that's where you hang out at. Now, this is still an improvement compared to the 0 you were at and maybe the plus 1 you were going up to every now and then for a little while. What you do now is you create a new spike, a new challenge by looking at what you want to achieve now. Maybe you want to go even harder on your workouts. Maybe you want to include mobility work, some other type of sort of fitness side hustle, let's call it that, into your life. So you create a challenge for that, right? And this challenge incorporates what you have already achieved into it. And challenge by challenge, you try to eliminate more of your bad habits and more of your previous day-to-day life. This new challenge, you're now at a 1.5 again. You're now going up to like a 7. Okay, your default state should be a 2. You've dropped down to maybe like a 1.5. Now you go up to like a 6, 6.5, 7, all the way up there. Hardcore challenge. After the challenge, you drop down to a 4 maybe. Okay? The 4 is your new 0. And then over time, you're probably going to even out to maybe a 3.5, maybe a 3. You have now made twice the progress that you had before, and 3 times the progress you were occasionally making by going to plus 1 and then slowly sort of fizzling out back to a 0. Again, to sort of visualize what I'm talking about here, I'm going to throw in some graphs, or I probably did already as I was talking about this. That's how you get out of these ruts. That's how you really change up your life. Not one step at a time, not 1% every day. That's fucking nonsense. Completely change your shit up. And then maybe, slowly drift back mildly in the direction of where you were before. But if you change up your shit this drastically, if you go this hard, you will not be able to fully turn back. You will be incapable of it because you will have gone so far in such a short amount of time that you will have changed at least a part of yourself irreversibly. Because trying out a habit for a while, right? That's not an extreme experience. That's like a slight difference in your day-to-day life. That's not something you remember. That's not something you recall. You think back to with this sort of intense feeling. You associate certain emotions, certain experiences with. That's, just a slightly different regular day-to-day for you. That's not what we want. We want to completely change who you are in regards to, let's say, working out here. So if right now you're at the point where you try to set these goals of doing your morning push-ups every day or something, and you do that for a while, maybe even a month, 2 months, whatever, and then you start to trail off and forget about it and you stop doing it, maybe a reasonable challenge would be 4 weeks where you do a certain number of push-ups and pull-ups and squats and, let's say, steps every day. And it should be significant. It should be like 100. Now, it doesn't have to be 100 push-ups and 100 pull-ups. Obviously, pull-ups are harder than push-ups, but we're getting into the nitty-gritty details here. That shit doesn't really matter. What matters is that it's an extreme change from before. Do that for 4 weeks. Focus on doing it. There's no excuses you can make. Nothing that is going to allow you to not do it. This is your mission, okay? Finish those 4 weeks, and then you drop down to, I don't know, 5,000 steps a day, 50 push-ups, and like 10 pull-ups, and maybe you skip the squats because you're already walking, or whatever the fuck, right? Just so you have an idea of what I'm talking about here. Instead of trying to slightly change what you're doing right now, take what you're doing right now, yoink it in the fucking trash, do something completely different, and you will be a changed man. I think I've explained this concept in as many ways as I can possibly think of now. We're going to leave it at that. I hope you guys have taken away from this video what you can. I'm actually noticing that I'm slurring my speech a little bit. This is the third video I'm recording today. So if you guys enjoyed yourselves, learned something, got inspired by this video, motivated to do what I told you, get on that shit. Go so fucking hard that you can't turn back, possibly. Go ahead and leave a like and share this video with anyone who might need to hear it, both for the motivation and the actual contents, the advice I give here, so that they can turn their shit around. If you have any questions, suggestions for future videos, something you want to hear me talk about, go in depth on, go ahead and leave a comment. I would actually appreciate that a lot. It helps the algorithm as well. And you can also hit me up on Instagram, especially if you're interested in a personalized training program or coaching of some sort. Go over there and just DM me, hit me up. If you're interested in seeing more videos of mine on fitness, general health, also on philosophy, I talk about that type of stuff on occasion. Go ahead and subscribe and activate the notification bell if you want notifications. All that being said, I'm going to leave it at that and finish recording for today. I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, have a good one.